Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen, the channel that brings you your team every single day, guys. If you want everyday content from Rangers, if you want me to get it, hit that sub, ring that notification bell, and then you'll never, ever miss out on the content. And we don't charge for it, guys. It is free at the point of use. We're not like the Patreon sites. We don't charge you for a monthly fee or a weekly fee. It's free to get your information here. Now, Rangers beat Livingston 4-0. It was a decent performance. It wasn't a great performance. It wasn't a terrible performance. It was a okay performance. Let's put this into context. Livingston are a poor team, a very, very poor team, and had 0 shots on goal. So let's look at it this way. We were good for the first 20 minutes. There were passages of play. There was good passing. There was attempts on goal. It was a decent performance for the first 20 minutes. Then, as I think it was Stephen Kelly, the Livingston player, said himself, Rangers seem to take the lead and then sit back, which seems to be something we do tend to do, which is take our foot off the pedals, which is something we can't afford to do, especially against that lot from across the city where we play them in December. Yes, we won 4-0. Does 4-0 flatter us? Perhaps a tiny bit. Was it the perfect performance? No. Did we keep a clean sheet? Yes. There are positives. Of course, there are positives. 4 goals, clean sheet, go to the semi-finals. We've got to win the League Cup. If we just win the League Cup, is that good enough? No, it is not. The league for me is a must. I think even if we were to win the Scottish Cup and the League Cup this season, but not the league, I think that would still go down as a disaster for us. The league for me is the be all and end all this season. That is what we have to win. Now, Rangers go into the game against Aberdeen with a growing injury crisis. I mean, let's just take a look for a minute at the players who are currently missing from this lineup. So players that will be missing, and a lot of these players are going to be missing until after the international break. Todd Cantwell, who was, hasn't started the season great, that's a given, but obviously was one of the most influential players last season. Same can be said for Nicholas Raskin. Tom Lawrence, who had just come back in this season, was starting to get back at it, starting to look a decent player, goes down injured. Robbie Matondo, who was on that redemption arc, out injured. Danilo, who arguably is probably the best striker at the club, scores, then goes off injured, fractured cheekbone, out and now until after the international break. Kamar Ruth, best finisher at the club, goes out injured, groin injury. How long he'll be without for, we don't know. Even Michael Beale himself said that when he was talking about the whole Kamar situation. He talked about this. He says, I'll have to speak with the medical team, but he felt his groin. It's bitterly disappointing as we're trying to find a rhythm. We're finding rhythm as far as results, but if you look at the amount of gifted forwards we've got, it's not easy. Kamara has a slight problem with his groin. He felt it probably midway through the first half. He probably should have asked to come off. In all fairness, we've just had that chat in there in reference to the dressing room. I did release a video talking about that in a little bit more depth. If you want to check that out, guys, go back and check out this video here. It's on the channel. So obviously, Kamar Ruth looks like he will be missing for a number of weeks, and Kamar has looked really good since he's come back into the team. And I guess there's kind of a creeping inevitability about Kamar Ruth getting injured, isn't there? He is a player who has suffered long and hard with injuries throughout his career, and it seems that again, no matter what, we hope that hip injury had sorted everything out. Has it? Well, I suppose you could argue it kind of has, because muscle injuries players do sustain, and like I said, going back to that list for a minute, you can kind of see that. I put a question mark by Yilmaz as he's out with cramp, but let's face it, the Ibrox medical staff are notoriously bad at predicting injuries and lengths of time out and saying whether something is an injury. I mean, let's face it, last year, Tom Lawrence was going to be out for a couple of weeks and then missed the entire season. So until I actually hear from Michael Beale or actually see Yilmaz play again, I'm going to put a question mark over his fitness. Kieran Dowell, obviously, is another player who is out missing. Now, arguably, you look at that list, there are 8 players on that list if you include Yilmaz. And realistically, from that list, you've got Cantwell, Raskin, Lawrence, who probably would all be starters, Danilo and Ruth, who would be starters. Yilmaz as well, arguably also a starter. So it's probably, 6 starting players. Matondo on his form this season. There's a lot of players who would naturally be starting games. Now, going into the Aberdeen game on Saturday, which is going to be another proposition. Aberdeen, yes, have struggled this season, but certainly in their last game had turned it round and gave a very good account of themselves against Eintracht Frankfurt in the Europa Conference League, whatever that Mickey Mouse competition is actually called. these days. They did give a very good account of themselves. They won 2-1 in the quarter-final against Ross County yesterday, and won 4-0 against Ross County in the league. So they seem to be turning it around just as they come to face Rangers. And as I've said on the previous videos, Aberdeen will give everything. They'll shed blood. They'll lay their lives on the line to beat Rangers. We all know that it is the be-all and end-all of their lives to beat Rangers. There's obviously a very real possibility that it could be an Aberdeen Rangers League Cup final, again, visiting the days of the late 80s. So, look, it's going to be a tough game. Now, one of the things that is concerning with that injury list is the centre-forward position. Now, Danilo, obviously, is out injured. We know that. Kamar Roof, who has started a great deal of number of games recently in the Europa League and in the league, is now out injured. This pretty much leaves us with one out-and-out centre-forward in this man who has, well, let's face it, flattered to deceive. And I think, I've listened to all the podcasts now, the Rabble, the Gallant Few, this is Ibrox, Rangers Review, and they've all kind of said pretty much similar to what I've said, that he really is not cooking the mustard at the moment, and he is absolutely stinking out the place and struggling big time. Rangers have a choice to make on Saturday, and it's out of these four players. Is it 3 out of the 4 start, or is it 2 out of the 4? How does Michael Beale go about this? Yes, he's got Scott Wright, who can play as a wide man as part of a 3. Lammers, who can play wide or kind of wide and in the hole. Dessers, who pretty much can just play up front. But I don't honestly think Dessers can play up front by himself. He's more a foil striker, like a B-Tech Emil Heskey. Abdallah Sima, who played very well on Wednesday night, looked a very, very good quality player, scored 5 goals already this season, looks decent. Looks a really good player. I think Lammers has got 1 goal, Dessers has 3, but I'd argue is yet to actually take a proper chance. Penalty in 1 game, 1 that bounced off him against Servette, and 1 that ricocheted off him against Motherwell. So he hasn't actually had a chance dropped to him and actually take the chance himself. It's been a series of deflections and a penalty. So, look, it is worrying really going into this game against Aberdeen that we are down to kind of last man standing in terms of out-and-out centre-forwards, and kind of got to, mix and match around him, pretty much as we did last season, when Cholak and Morelos were out. But fortunately, Sakala managed to uptake on his numbers and kind of filled in for that missing void that was there in the team. So where do we go from here? How do we line up on Saturday? What is the system we go with? And what does Michael Beale do, with these players? You look at, for instance, Cyriel Dessers and, Derek Clark, who I respect a lot, from Rangers Review, spoke about Cyriel Dessers today on Rangers Review. And I don't know if you haven't had a chance to go and check that out. That's the Rangers Review from Thursday the 28th. Check it out. He does talk about that when Joshua Barry brings up Cyriel Dessers. And it's an interesting take that Derek Clark has on Cyriel Dessers. This is what he said. He said that he looked cumbersome. He gave a cumbersome performance after he came off the bench against Livingston. He added, it's almost like watching a centre-back play up front, and that Cyriel Dessers has, in his words, shown nothing to indicate he could be the man to fire in the goals for Rangers. Clark said, I know that Cyriel Dessers came on, another cumbersome performance for me up top. If Rangers are relying on Cyriel Dessers to get goals, fans will start to worry. He looks like Connor Goldson being put up front. It's almost like a centre-half playing up front at this moment in time. I know that may be a bit harsh on Cyriel Dessers, but he's shown nothing at this moment in time to get fans excited that he is the answer. These are a number now of Ibrox insiders are kind of questioning this signing and questioning the amount of money we spent on this man and the talent that he has. And look, I know I've got a reputation for calling him out. I do it on X pretty much every day, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. But this is another person, someone who is insider, someone who talks to the players, someone who is insider on the club, casting doubts on his ability to contribute. And if Dessers is going to win over the fans, and look, I don't take any great pleasure in saying that he's rubbish and he's not cutting the mustard. I'd love him to make me words. I'd love him to score loads of goals. I'd love him to prove me wrong. Of course I would. Because if he does, that means Rangers are doing well. That means Rangers are going to win. That means Rangers are going to win silverware. And that's what I want at the end of the day. That's what we all want as fans. So, look, the next, up until the international break, is really an opportunity, I think, for Lammers and Dessers to kind of take the opportunity that is going to be presented to them, because they are kind of last men standing when it comes to Rangers and at this attacking positions, with the absence, obviously, of Danilo, of Roof, of Cantwell, of Lawrence, and Matondo. So they've really got to sort of take advantage of this opportunity they get. Now, for me, they're trying to get back to basics. They, at times, look to be trying too hard. They lack confidence, I think. They need to try and rebuild that somehow, and getting a goal will be one of those ways. But kind of get back to basics. Do the simple things first. Do the simple things right first, and then try the more complicated stuff. At times, they just try to do a little bit too much in front of goal, or a little bit too much to generate that chance, and it just goes wrong. There was for instance, in the Livingston game, Dessers checks back from his right to his left, back to his right, then back to his left again, by which time it's too slow. It gets blocked, and the chance goes. It's a situation where, take the basics, like I said, ball comes in, take the chance. Ball comes in, take the shot. Be simple around the box. Be simple in the box. Get yourself in the box, Dessers. Get yourself in that 6-yard box when balls have been skimmed across. That, at the end of the day, is the best way for Rangers to move forward. And we do need these two guys to really step it up now, in the absence of Danilo and Roof. I do feel that when Danilo comes back, he does need to be given a starting opportunity. He, like I said, he did prove it a little bit, obviously, against St Johnstone until he went off injured. He does look a much better striker than Cyriel Dessers, a much better prospect for me than Dessers. Now, in terms of the left-back slot, yes, I don't know where Ridvan is in terms of his injury. Ridvan, for me, just provided something that Borna Barisic can't. He bombed on, he got forward, he gave real width out there on the left-hand side, and him and Seema linked superbly well. Ridvan gets down to the byline, and I know what the concern is with Ridvan, that he can't stay fit, that he can't have that run of games, and hopefully this is just cramp and he will be back available for the Aberdeen game. Realistically, I do think Barisic will start, because that's Michael Beale's favourite, but I would start Ridvan if he is fit. I think he proved on Wednesday he is by far the superior left back. He is a much better player than Borna Barisic. He offers so much more than Barisic does. He can defend better than Barisic. Yes, Barisic's defence does seem to have improved this season, and I'm not saying Barisic is rubbish, but I am saying that even though Barisic had a good start to the season, he, for me, is not as good as Ridvan. He cannot bomb on the way Ridvan does. He does not have the ability to get to the byline and pull the ball across the face the way that he does. He kind of stops, waits, stands on about sort of on a diagonal with the edge of the area and whips it into the area, which isn't always effective. It can be slow at times coming in, whereas Ridvan enables a much quicker delivery. So, look, I would go with Ridvan at left back if he's fit. I think he does need to start. He is a better player, I think, for Barisic. And long term, he's the player we invested in. Can we see a return for that investment? We need to see whether we've got this player, if he can stay fit. I know that is the big question surrounding Ridvan Yilmaz. But it seems to be with a number of our players now. Can they stay fit? It does beg a question about their fitness, about the training methods, and about also the impact injuries they are getting, and do they need more protection from officials in terms of the kicking they take on a weekly basis from the hammer throwers they play from around the SPFL. Well, guys, let me know what you think. Who should play up front against Aberdeen? What are your predictions for that game as we go towards the game at the weekend? Thank you so much for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. And as always, if you enjoyed the content, please smash that sub. Help us to keep building the channel. And there's always two things I need you to do for me. Number one, smash the like. And number two, remember, we are the people.